Welcome to a journey through the cosmos where the fate of civilizations hangs in the balance. In this story, humanity faces a galaxy filled with powerful alien species, each with their own motives and plans. But what happens when a small, seemingly insignificant human outpost becomes the battlefield that defies all expectations? What happens when the invaders learn, too late, that humanity is not to be underestimated, in a galaxy where strength, technology, and brute force often decide the outcome of conflicts? The human race has just proven that the real power lies in something far deeper: resolve, resilience, and the unbreakable will to fight for survival. But this is just the beginning. Join us as we delve into a thrilling saga of battles, strategy, and unexpected turns. Watch as the once mighty Galactic Coalition faces the consequences of underestimating humanity's power. A battle for survival, a message to the universe, and a lesson learned in the harshest way possible. Don't miss out on this epic tale. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Get ready to journey through the stars and explore what it truly means to never underestimate humanity. 1. The voice of the Elder. The council chamber was an immense, oval-shaped room, carved from the cold, unforgiving rock of a forgotten moon. The walls were ancient, covered in the dust of countless years, and the air was thick with the weight of unspoken history. The dim, flickering lights barely illuminated the assembly of delegates from 10 different species, each with their own agenda, their own prejudices, and their own desire for power. At the far end of the room, a figure stood, his eyes dark and heavy with centuries of experience. Onra, the elder of the Isolan race, one of the oldest and most respected species in the Zith coalition, spoke with a voice that carried the resonance of ages. His words were not just a warning, but a prophecy, one shaped by years of witnessing the rise and fall of empires, the endless battles, and the prideful ignorance of countless species. His eyes swept across the room, meeting the gaze of each council member, his presence filling the space with the weight of his warning. "You don't harm humans." Onra's voice boomed through the hall, his tone low but filled with the gravity of a long-lived creature who had seen civilizations rise and crumble. "One slip, and they will hunt you down, no matter where you hide." The council fell silent. There was an unsettling tension in the air, the kind of stillness that came before a storm. Every eye was on Onra, the ancient and revered elder, but there was a deep unease in the air, a sense that something important was being overlooked. "Do not underestimate them," Onra continued, his voice unwavering. "They are young, yes. They are impulsive, noisy, and chaotic, but that is their strength. They will fight until the very end, and they will not forget. You think you can crush them? You think you can wipe them out? You are wrong." The room was thick with murmurs, the representatives of the various species exchanging uneasy glances. Some, like the Zith, the Revano, and even the Ayan, believed they could subdue this young and unpolished race. To them, humans were just another species, easily discarded like any other. But Onra had lived long enough to know better. He had seen the rise of empires and the fall of gods. He had seen what happened when an underdog was underestimated, and he knew that the consequences for underestimating humans would be far more severe than any of them could imagine. His warning hung in the air like a cloud of impending doom. The voices of dissent rose around him, but they were weaker now, shaken by the gravity of his words. They didn't fully understand yet, but they would, soon enough. As Onra's voice faded into the chamber, there was a finality to it, as though the very fabric of fate had been woven into the elder's words. The decision that would follow would change everything, and so, the council continued its deliberations, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The weight of Onra's warning, though ignored by many, would come to haunt them all, too. The council and the decision to attack. The council chamber was a monumental structure, its walls hewn from the cold, lifeless stone of a moon long forgotten by the universe. Its size was overwhelming, a vast oval hall that seemed to stretch endlessly. A silent witness to centuries of political maneuvering. The air was thick with anticipation as representatives from 10 different species gathered, each one eager to have their say. The weight of history hung heavy in the room, and the stakes were high. too high for the council to be anything but vigilant. But vigilance was in short supply that day. At the center of the room, the massive, circular table gleamed in the low light. It was a table that had seen more decisions than any being present would care to remember, and yet today, the fate of an entire species rested upon the outcome of the debate. The discussion was intense. The representatives of the various species leaned forward in their seats, their eyes sharp, their voices laced with impatience. The issue at hand was simple on the surface, but fraught with implications. Should the coalition authorize an attack on a small human outpost situated at the edge of disputed space? One by one, the voices of the council spoke out. The representatives of the Revano and the Zith, powerful and ruthless species, spoke with confidence, their words dripping with disdain for the humans. To them, humans were an upstart race, barely a century old, with no place in the greater galactic order. They saw the humans as an insignificant nuisance, a species too young to understand the vastness of the universe, too inexperienced to wield any real power. The outpost is nothing more than a dot in the vast expanse of space, Renak, the leader of the Revano, scoffed. His crimson leathery skin rippled with aggression as he spoke, his words filled with arrogance. Why are we even debating this? We will crush them without breaking a sweat, but Onra, the elder of the Isolan race, had already spoken. His warning, rich with centuries of experience, had resonated through the chamber, but it was clear that his words were falling on deaf ears. His cautionary tale about the ferocity of humans, their determination, their refusal to ever give up, these things meant little to those who saw only their own ambition. Terran, the representative of the Ayan, a race of amphibious beings known for their strategic brilliance, leaned forward, his deep blue skin shimmering in the dim light. He didn't speak with the same arrogance as Renak. His was a voice of reason, though it was beginning to show signs of concern. Humans are impulsive, chaotic, yes. But this idea of fear, of them hunting us down, it doesn't make sense. They may be young, but we face far worse species, with more advanced technology and armies stronger than theirs. Why do we fear them? Despite his calm demeanor, his words were met with skepticism. The Revano, always eager to conquer, dismissed him with a wave. The Zith, too, were quick to disregard the possibility that the humans might possess anything that could challenge their supremacy. General Hri, a Durkai warrior who had fought in more wars than most beings could even count, spoke next. His voice was steady, but there was a hardness to it that could not be ignored. I fought them, he said, his eyes narrowing as memories of past battles flooded his mind. I fought them at the siege of Saros. We outnumbered them, we outgunned them, and we had the advantage in every possible way. Yet, we lost, a murmur rippled through the room. The once confident council members exchanged uneasy glances. Renak scoffed, dismissing Hri's words as irrelevant. We've faced far stronger species than these humans. What makes them different? Hri's gaze hardened as he continued, we captured one of their commanders early in the battle, expecting retaliation or perhaps some form of negotiation. Weeks passed without any contact. Then, suddenly, 3 of our battleships were destroyed in a single night. Silent. Precise. And in the end, they took the commander back. No words. No threats. But the message was clear. The council fell into an uneasy silence. Even Renak's arrogance seemed to falter as the reality of the situation began to sink in. The aliens in the room had faced countless foes, but there was something about the humans, a level of determination, a quiet resilience, that they didn't fully understand. Still, the majority of the council was blinded by greed and ambition. The human outpost, though small, was strategically important. Its location controlled vital trade routes and resources. It was a prize too valuable to ignore, and the council members, driven by their own desires for power and control, could not let it slip away. After a tense silence, the council voted. One by one, the representatives cast their votes in favor of the attack. Terran, still hesitant but unwilling to go against the majority, reluctantly supported the strike. The decision was made, Onra's warning, so carefully and solemnly spoken, hung in the air, but it was dismissed as just the ramblings of an old being who had seen too much. The council had made its choice, and the attack was authorized. Humanity, in their eyes, was just another species to be crushed under the weight of the coalition's ambitions, but as the votes were tallied and the decision was finalized, a sense of unease settled over the chamber. Onra's words, though ignored, had planted a seed of doubt. The council may have won the battle of persuasion, but they had just begun a war they would soon regret. The perspectives of the alien representatives, as the debate over the attack on the human outpost raged on, the council chamber became a battleground of words and ideologies. Each representative, secure in their own species' superiority, argued with vigor, but no one truly understood what made humanity so formidable, except for those who had experienced them firsthand. Torin, the representative of the Ion, an amphibious species known for their strategic brilliance, sat quietly on the far side of the chamber. His deep blue skin shimmered in the dim light, his sharp, reflective black eyes scanning the room as he carefully weighed the arguments around him. Torin was not quick to speak, preferring instead to listen and analyze. He understood the art of war better than most, and something about the way the debate unfolded struck him as fundamentally wrong. He had heard the arguments of Renak, the Revano representative, who believed that the humans could be crushed effortlessly, but Torin wasn't so sure. He had seen empires fall and wars lost to overconfidence, and he didn't take such matters lightly. Still, he remained calm, his voice steady as he addressed the council. Yes, humans are impulsive, chaotic, and, from our perspective, reckless, Torin began, his voice resonating with quiet authority. But this notion that we should fear them, it makes no sense. We face far more dangerous species, more advanced technology, stronger armies, and far more brutal tactics. Why does this human race evoke such fear? His words, though reasonable, were met with dismissive murmurs. The Revano, always eager to dominate, remained unconvinced. The Zith, too, scoffed at Torin's caution. Humans, after all, were still new to the galactic stage, a species barely a century old. What could they possibly do that other more established species couldn't handle? But the debate grew more intense, and as Torin observed, the council members seemed increasingly blinded by their own arrogance. They had dismissed the elders' warning, and now they were blinded by their greed and desire for control. They didn't realize that it wasn't about strength or advanced weaponry, it was about something much deeper. It was about the will to fight, the persistence to never back down, and the fierce desire to protect their own. These were qualities the aliens had never fully considered, and they were about to learn the hard way. And then, General HRI spoke, his voice commanding and unwavering as he shared his experiences from the past. Experience speaks for itself, he said, his deep voice carrying a weight that silenced the room. I fought them at Saros. We had the advantage, more troops, better weaponry, superior tactics. Yet, we lost. HRI's words struck like a hammer, and for the first time, a ripple of doubt ran through the council. What HRI spoke of wasn't just a theoretical fear, but a cold, hard fact. The humans were unpredictable. And it was that unpredictability, paired with their unyielding will, that made them so dangerous. Still, the council was torn, unwilling to believe that such a seemingly young and chaotic race could stand against their might. It wasn't until it was too late that they would truly understand the cost of underestimating humans. The human outpost, far from the bustling cities and complex political maneuvers of the galactic powers, the human outpost stood like a quiet sentinel on the edge of the known universe. It was small, no more than a mere dot on the vast map of the galaxy, but to those who operated within it, it was a vital hub. A communications and logistics center, the outpost ensured that supply lines were maintained, trade routes remained open, and vital connections were upheld. Lieutenant Darius Voss paced the control room, his hands folded behind his back as he surveyed the screens before him. He had seen his fair share of calm nights, the long stretches of silence that made space feel even more infinite and isolated. But tonight, there was something different. The air felt thick, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. He sipped his cold coffee absent-mindedly, his eyes drifting across the radar. Everything seemed normal, too normal. But Darius had been in enough situations to know that lulls were never trustworthy. Something was coming, Sergeant Holt, he said, his voice breaking the silence. Sergeant Mira Holt, his trusted second-in-command, appeared behind him with a soft smile, holding a fresh cup of coffee. "Looks like it's going to be another peaceful night, huh?" she said with a touch of sarcasm in her voice. Darius didn't respond immediately. His eyes still glued to the radar. "I wouldn't bet on it," he muttered under his breath. "You know what they say, never trust a lull." As if on cue, one of the display screens flickered, showing an anomaly on the radar. Darius's gaze snapped to it, his posture shifting from casual to alert. He tapped a few keys, his fingers flying over the controls as the data began to process. "Wait, we have something," he said, his voice now sharp with focus. 6 unidentified ships, approaching fast. Mira's expression immediately shifted from amusement to concentration. "Pirates, I'm not sure," Darius replied, narrowing his eyes as he studied the readings. "They're moving too coordinated for looters." "This is something else." Without hesitation, Mira grabbed the intercom. "Attention everyone, get to your stations. We've got visitors." The outpost's lights dimmed as the crew shifted into action, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The base wasn't heavily fortified, it wasn't designed to withstand a full-on assault. But what it lacked in raw firepower, it made up for in cleverness and preparation. And there was one thing the invaders didn't know: the station had a secret weapon, autonomous Sentinel-class drones, designed for swift and precise defense. As the alien ships approached, Darius's fingers hovered over the console. His eyes flicked back and forth between the radar and the control screens, analyzing the movements of the enemy fleet. They were trying to surround the base, creating an arc, likely to launch a coordinated strike. But something was off, their movements were rushed, too confident for what they were facing. "Big mistake," Mira muttered, her gaze locked on the screen as the ships continued their approach. Darius nodded grimly. "Let's show them what happens when they underestimate us." The stage was set. The outpost wasn't just a dot on the map anymore, it was about to become the starting point of something much larger. And as the alien ships neared, the crew of the outpost braced for impact, ready to defend their home and send a message to the galaxy: never underestimate the resolve of humanity. Secret weapons and defensive tactics. As the tension in the control room mounted, Darius Voss's calm demeanor never faltered. He had faced countless challenges in his career, but this felt different, more immediate. He knew that the approaching ships weren't just any run-of-the-mill pirates. There was coordination in their movements, a calculated precision that made him nervous. It was no longer just a question of defense, this was a battle to prove that even the smallest outpost could strike back with overwhelming force when needed. With a flick of his wrist, Darius activated the station's most secret and powerful weapon, the autonomous Sentinel drones. These were no ordinary defense units. They had been engineered for speed, precision, and overwhelming firepower. Each drone was equipped with rapid response systems and advanced targeting algorithms, capable of intercepting enemy projectiles and returning fire with deadly accuracy. The invaders wouldn't know what hit them. "Activate Sentinel defense protocols," Darius ordered, his voice cutting through the rising noise of the crew preparing their stations. The station's lights flickered once more, casting a brief shadow over the room before shifting into a bright, harsh readiness mode. Every member of the crew moved swiftly, adjusting their positions and ensuring that every defense system was online. Darius's eyes never left the radar, watching as the 6 unidentified ships drew closer. Their patterns were predictable, but they didn't yet realize the full extent of the human defenses. "Prepare to engage," Darius muttered under his breath as he continued to monitor the enemy fleet's movements. His mind worked quickly, analyzing every possible angle. The invaders were closing in fast, but they weren't expecting a fight like this. Outside, the space around the outpost grew darker as the enemy ships formed a tight formation, readying for what they believed would be a simple strike. But as the first pulse of the sentinels echoed through space, their fate was sealed. The first attack, the alien ships closed in, their engines thrumming with the anticipation of victory. They thought the human outpost was an easy target, a poorly defended dot in the galaxy. They expected no resistance, only easy plunder. But they were gravely mistaken. As the lead ship fired its first volley of plasma rounds toward the station, the defensive systems of the outpost roared to life. Darius's fingers danced over the console, sending rapid commands that launched the Sentinel drones into action. The drones shot out from their concealed hangars, their sleek metallic bodies cutting through space like swift predators. Their advanced targeting systems immediately locked onto the incoming plasma shots. Calculating trajectory, speed, and force in mere milliseconds, intercepting, Darius said with a cool efficiency. The drones raced forward, their weapons unleashing a barrage of counterfire that slammed into the enemy's plasma rounds. In a dazzling display of power and precision, the plasma shots were destroyed mid-flight. But the drones weren't done yet. They switched targets in a heartbeat, honing in on the alien ships with deadly accuracy. The first enemy ship didn't even have a chance to react. It attempted to swerve, but the drone's fire was too fast, too precise. In an instant, the ship's hull exploded in a flash of bright, fiery destruction. Debris scattered through space like a deadly confetti. As the ship disintegrated under the relentless assault. Humanity's counterattack. The moment of quiet tension was palpable in the control room as Darius and Mira observed the remaining 4 alien ships closing in on the human outpost. The invaders, having lost 2 of their fleet in mere moments, were now growing desperate. But this, Darius knew, was exactly what the humans needed. The invaders had assumed they were still in control, expecting the humans to fold under pressure. But Darius, ever the strategist, knew that confidence often led to overconfidence, and that was when mistakes were made. Let them come closer, Darius ordered calmly, his voice steady as his fingers hovered over the control panel. They're growing careless. Let's make them think they have the advantage. Mira's eyes narrowed as she studied the screens. She could see the erratic movements of the remaining alien ships, their pilots growing more frantic as the humans had proven more resilient than anticipated. Yet they still underestimated the human will to fight. She nodded silently at Darius's command, trusting his judgment. The station's defenses, though minimal compared to full-scale warships, were more than enough for the job. The autonomous Sentinel drones remained in their standby position, awaiting the command to strike. The enemy ships, now emboldened by their perceived success, began to close the distance, believing the humans were caught off guard. With every passing moment, they grew bolder, circling the station, preparing for a final assault. Their weapons locked onto the station's weak points, ready to deliver a killing blow. The last mistake they would make. Darius exhaled slowly, watching the alien ships approach on the radar, tracking their every move with calculating precision. Now, he muttered under his breath. The moment the enemy vessels were close enough to fire, he gave the order, engage full defenses. Darius commanded, the station's systems roared to life, and the full might of the human defenses erupted. The sentinels surged into action, swarming toward the enemy ships with deadly force. The cannons along the station's perimeter whined as they rotated into position, charging up for a relentless barrage. The first alien ship that attempted to get too close was met with a hail of fire from the drones. The station's defense cannons unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, ripping through the alien craft's shields before piercing the hull. In seconds, the ship was reduced to a mass of burning metal, its remains floating aimlessly in the cold vacuum of space. The second ship didn't fare any better. It tried to retreat, firing its weapons blindly, but it was too late. The drones were faster, smarter, and more agile than the invaders had anticipated. The human outpost was no longer just a defenseless target. It was a force to be reckoned with. Another targeted shot tore through the ship's engines, sending it spiraling into the dark expanse, its crew helpless as the lights of the ship flickered out. Mira watched with quiet satisfaction as the final alien ships struggled to regroup. "They're disorganized," she said, glancing at Darius. "They weren't ready for this." Darius didn't respond, his eyes focused on the remaining ships. "Keep up the pressure. Don't let them think they can recover." The enemy ships began to panic. They no longer had the coordinated movements they once had. Instead of regrouping, they scattered, desperate to avoid the concentrated fire of the human defenses. But their panic only made them easier targets. Realization hit the alien ships like a freight train. The humans were not just resilient, they were formidable, and their station, once thought of as nothing more than a small outpost, had turned into an impenetrable fortress. The invaders, realizing the magnitude of their mistake, tried to outmaneuver the humans. They shifted tactics, attempting to break the human formation, but it was too little, too late. In their desperation, the alien ships tried to spread out, moving erratically in an attempt to overwhelm the human defenses. They split into smaller groups, trying to confuse the drones, but the humans had anticipated this. The station's fire control systems were already tracking every movement. Calculating every angle with precision, the drones followed the alien ship's every move, and the defense cannons fired relentlessly. One by one, the alien ships fell apart under the concentrated fire. The first ship tried to evade, but a well-placed shot took out its weapons systems, leaving it helpless as the drones closed in. A second volley from the cannon sent the ship into a tailspin, its hull rupturing as it exploded into space debris. The second ship, attempting to outflank the station, met a similar fate. It maneuvered to the side, trying to get behind the outpost's defenses. But the drones adapted, shifting their focus, and within moments, the ship was torn to shreds by the relentless barrage of human firepower. The remaining ships, now completely disorganized and struggling to regroup, continued to retreat in panic, each one realizing too late that they were facing an enemy they could not outwit. The remaining two alien vessels scrambled to break away, attempting to flee, but the humans were already on their tail. Darius issued a final command. "No mercy. Finish it." The Council's panic, back in the heart of the Coalition's domain, the vast chamber of the Council was steeped in tension. It was a place where decisions shaped the course of the galaxy, where fate was often determined by the words of the few who held power. But as the news of the failed assault reached them, the atmosphere shifted drastically. Panic began to spread like wildfire, creeping through the ranks of the once confident representatives. The same species who had arrogantly declared humanity's inferiority were now sitting in stunned silence, the weight of their mistake pressing down on them like an invisible force. The reports came in fast, each more disconcerting than the last. The alien fleet, sent to crush the human outpost, had been obliterated in a matter of minutes, 2/3 of the ships destroyed, the rest fleeing in disarray. And it wasn't just the loss of the fleet that caused shock and fear to ripple through the room. It was the manner of the attack, the precision with which the humans had countered and eliminated the threat. Their defenses, impossible. Renak, the leader of the Revano, muttered, disbelief evident in his usually arrogant voice. He paced back and forth, his crimson skin pulsing with agitation. This wasn't supposed to happen. We should have crushed them. Torin, the Iron representative, sat with his arms crossed, watching the room closely. His earlier warnings had gone unheeded, but now, he could see the fear in the eyes of those who had dismissed humanity as a mere nuisance. "It's not just their weapons," he said softly, though his words carried across the room. "It's their resolve. Their ability to fight when there's no hope left. We've underestimated them from the start." Onra's warning echoed in their minds, now more present than ever. The Elder had spoken of humanity's resilience, its unyielding will to survive. And now, they were facing the consequences of ignoring that lesson. What had begun as a small skirmish, an attack on a seemingly insignificant outpost, had turned into a nightmare. The Coalition's pride had been wounded, and it was clear now that the humans would not go quietly into the night. Hardrick, the Durkai general, sat motionless, his face grave, but his thoughts loud. His warning had been clear. He had fought against the humans before and knew all too well the depths of their determination. Now, seeing the stunned faces around him, he finally allowed the grim truth to settle in. We should never have attacked them. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a miscalculation that could cost us everything. The council was silent now, the severity of the situation dawning on them. The humans had shown they were more than just another species to dominate, they were a force in their own right. The once powerful coalition, composed of the most formidable species in the galaxy, was now staring down the consequences of underestimating a race they had once viewed as nothing more than children in the cosmos. It was too late for regrets, and they all knew it. The human message, meanwhile, in the void of space, the victorious human fleet moved in formation, having wiped out the alien invaders with precise and overwhelming force. Their mission was complete. The small outpost, once thought of as a strategic weak point, had become the focal point of a message that would ripple across the galaxy. Darius Voss stood on the bridge of the Tempest, his eyes fixed on the swirling void outside, the debris of the enemy fleet still floating in the wake of the battle. The human forces, efficient and merciless, had dealt their enemies a blow they wouldn't soon forget. But this wasn't just about a single victory, it was about making a statement, a warning to anyone who might think to challenge humanity. Reynolds, Darius said, his voice calm but firm. Prepare the broadcast. Let them know we're here. Reynolds, his second-in-command, glanced at Darius, his expression serious. Are you sure, sir? After everything, yes, Darius interrupted, his gaze never wavering. It's time. We can't just hide in the shadows anymore. Let the galaxy know who they've angered. With that, the communications systems were activated, and a broadcast signal was sent out across the galaxy, broadcasting directly to the coalition and beyond. The message was simple, yet it carried the weight of their triumph. The screens across the galaxy flickered to life, displaying a single, straightforward statement.